I was at my job at the funeral home when I set out to put the body of a young woman into the crematory. However, I couldn't lift it, not even with the tool we use for the heaviest bodies. I remembered something they had told me. When a body becomes heavier than normal, it's because it doesn't want to go. And for some reason I felt that I wasn't alone. Very good evening, community. It's a pleasure to welcome you back here in this space, where we have gathered some of the most terrifying stories that you have sent us. So as I always tell you, I hope to find you in the best mood to get scared, and if not, the mission is that during the following minutes you completely forget about the problems and worries out there. A special greeting to all the people who are listening to us while working, and we thank you for letting us accompany you during your shift. You don't turn off the light, but also let yourself be carried away by the following tales of the night. I work as a waiter in a small hotel on the shores of Coronado Beach in California. It's not a resort or anything like that. It's a very quiet place, with few rooms, very beautiful, but without so much luxury. What we have the most are couples who come to rest, or foreigners who are looking for something more relaxed, more silent. I'm there almost every day, especially in the afternoons and evenings, when it's my turn to take dinner to the tables that are next to the dock. This, that I'm going to tell you, happened in low season, in the hurricane season of the peninsula, but it remained quite calm around here. The heat was still strong, but there weren't so many tourists anymore. So that afternoon, as strange as it sounds, there was only one guest in the hotel. It was a Spanish lady around 60 years old, very kind. She spoke little English, but we understood each other well. She had arrived just the day before and said she liked the place a lot, that it reminded her of an emerald lake she visited when she was a child. That afternoon I was at the restaurant bar, keeping an eye out in case she wanted something else. She had ordered a lemonade and took it to the dock. She sat there alone for a long time looking at the water. Everything was silent. Not a boat, nor wind, just the lagoon completely still. I had the lady in sight from the terrace and suddenly, I noticed something strange. The lady got up quickly, as if scared, and started speaking in Spanish, looking at the water. I couldn't understand well what she was saying, but her voice became louder, more desperate. She shouted something like, "Help, please, help." I ran out. I thought she had gotten dizzy or someone had fallen, but when I got to the dock, I saw that she had already gotten into the water dressed, still screaming, "Help, she's drowning." I ran to the shore and saw that she was looking for something in the water, as if trying to reach someone, but there was absolutely no one else. The lagoon was completely empty, as it always is now. A coworker from the hotel, Marlon, who was cleaning the rooms nearby, came as soon as she heard the screams. Between the two of us, we helped the lady get out. She was soaked, trembling, very nervous. We gave her a towel and took her to one of the chairs and tried to calm her, and little by little she breathed better. And then calmer, she explained to us. She said that she was sitting drinking her lemonade when she saw a girl standing in the water about 5 or 6 meters from the dock. She was in the deep part, barely managing to get her head out. The girl smiled at her, told her to come closer, that the water was warm, to come play. The lady told us that it seemed strange to her, but not dangerous, that she thought it was the daughter of some worker. So she went towards her, spoke to her, and when she put her feet in the water, the girl simply disappeared. She sank as if something had pulled her suddenly. That's why she got in, to get her out. That night the lady no longer wanted to be alone. She sat down to have dinner in the restaurant, and didn't stop looking at me all evening. Every time I moved from the dining room, she looked for me with her eyes, and when I approached she asked me if I already knew where the girl had come from. I only told her no, that there was no one in the water, that there was no girl there. In the end, when it was already late, I offered to accompany her to her room, but she said she would be fine. She thanked me for everything, still nervous, and went in. I was already leaving and it was my time to go out, and Marlon, my coworker, offered me a ride to town, and it was right on the way that she told me something I didn't know. She said that many years ago, when that area of the lagoon still had no hotels or docks, a girl drowned right there, where our dock is now, that she went in to swim alone, while her grandmother slept, and when they realized it was already too late, they found her several days later floating near the shore. Every year at least one person sees her again. Marlon told me, almost always they are older women. Some hear her speak, others only see her from afar. But always every year, someone gets her appearance. And then, as if she didn't want to say it, but couldn't avoid it, she added, "It's as if the poor thing is still looking for her grandmother." My name is Pablo Rivera, and I want to tell you something very brief. Today I decided to take my 3 children to the family cemetery. I did it because a year ago my foster father passed away, and I wanted to see how his grave was. We don't live in Honduras, but the family cemetery is near the town cemetery. When we arrived, I turned off the car, but only I got out to check if the gate was open. It wasn't. When I returned to the car, I told my kids to start having breakfast with what I had bought them, while I saw how to get in. It was then that my youngest daughter, the 3-year-old, told me that she wanted to eat there, while pointing towards the graves of the family cemetery. I told her that we couldn't because there were people buried there who were no longer in this world. And here is where it gets weird. My little girl replied with complete naturalness the following: "Mommy, the people who die have blood on their face." I innocently, really didn't react at the moment. I just answered her that yes, they were people who had already died, but she repeated the following 3 times. "Mommy, he has blood on his face. He has blood on his face." And now that I think about it, well, it scares me a lot. And the thing is that none of my relatives died violently, but right between the 2 cemeteries, a couple of years ago they took the life of a young man. They attacked him with a machete in the face. Hello, Tales of the Night community. I'm Sophie. I share with you a story about a game that my sister and I had when we were girls. There was a time when my sister and I were playing in the garage, where my grandfather was fixing some clocks on the table at the back. He was a watchmaker. While we were rummaging, we found a drawer full of keys of different shapes and sizes. We didn't know what they were for, but we became obsessed with them. We spent hours dividing them between us. We asked our grandfather if we could keep some, and he said yes. He took the ones we had chosen and made us a bunch with a carabiner so we could hang them on the length of the belt. The point is that thanks to that we invented a game that we ended up playing for years. It was what we enjoyed the most doing. We called it the key game, and it consisted of walking around the whole house, pretending to open doors and close them. We imagined that each door had its secrets and we had to find out. We could even find clues and things like that, creating a whole story around it. In fact, my grandfather even hid small objects for our game. For example, once I found a small keychain flashlight among the books on the bookshelf. Or on another occasion, my sister was the one who found a postcard of Chapultepec Castle among old clothes in one of the closets on the 1st floor. The keys didn't even fit in the locks, but we pretended they did. So that we could find out the secret of a room, we had to close all the doors in the house. That was the most important rule. We could only open one door at a time, one to enter, which we had to close behind us. So we had to lock ourselves in to investigate, and we couldn't leave until we discovered the mystery. We always invented something new. But what I'm going to tell you about was the time we supposedly had to find out why in the room, at the very end of the hallway, there was a black stain on the wall, but that stain had been there since I can remember. It really was mysterious. In fact, I don't know how or when it got there. When we entered, as always in our game, we pretended to lock the door behind us and began to investigate the stain. We had to approach a large window, where the curtains were always completely open. I approached and we pretended to take samples from the stain, which really smelled like sulfur. I moved away from it and told my sister to smell it. She did. It made her nauseous, which made me laugh. She got angry with me, saying it wasn't funny, and how disgusting. I was looking in the closet of the room, while she said there was a clue inside a clock. A long case, one that was in the corner. She opened the small display case to look at the pendulum, and I told her that we had already lost. She looked at me confused, but then she realized that I had opened the closet door first, and as I told you, in the game you couldn't open more than one door at the same time. She got very angry and I told her too bad, which for some reason made her even angrier. She told me that there really was a clue in the clock. I told her to calm down, that it was just a game, and she just pointed her finger at me and went to the first floor with my grandmother. I kept staring fixedly at the old clock that no longer worked. The truth is I was hypnotized looking at my reflection. My grandmother's scream made me finally blink. "We're coming right now. We're going to the market for the tortillas." I heard the door close. I looked out the window to see my grandmother and my sister cross the street. I, still in the game, felt that fear and the adrenaline to continue. I closed the closet door, used the bunch of keys to open the display case of the clock again. I used the small lamp that hung with the keys and put my head inside the clock case to see the top part. At first I couldn't see anything until with an accidental movement, I heard something move in the wood that held the pendulum. I put the keys on the floor, put my hand all the way to the back. It was instant. When I felt a cold metal in my fingers, I pulled out the object. It was an old little lighter covered with a thin layer of metal. I got so excited that I hit my head on the clock trying to get out. I won. It was the only thing I thought, admiring the lighter. A real clue. I hung the keys back on my belt, and without taking my eyes off my new treasure, I walked to the door to leave. But the knob wouldn't turn. I put the lighter in my pants and turned the knob again, but I couldn't. I started shaking it hard while feeling fear invade my body. It was impossible for the door to be locked. These were push-button doors. The only way I couldn't open it was if it was stuck, or someone else was holding it from the outside. I used both hands trying to turn it, but nothing. I couldn't. My heart was beating so hard that I felt my body pulsing too. I stopped for a moment. I felt heat on my back, as if someone was close to me. I felt my muscles tense. I didn't want to turn around, but I did. I did it abruptly, using the momentum to hit if something was behind me. But I only ended up hitting nothing. Once more and the turn quickly trying to open the door. I felt the tears coming out. In that I swear I heard footsteps in the hallway, and I stopped hoping it was my grandmother or my sister, but they sounded strange. I didn't recognize them. They were like someone wearing heels that neither of them used. From far away I could hear their slow steps, and when I felt they were about to reach the middle of the hallway, the steps accelerated as if whoever was out there wanted to crash into the door. But that never happened. It took me a few seconds to move. The only thing I did was take a step back. I moved my head until it touched the floor to peek through the small space under the door. No one's feet could be seen. "I know it's you, huh?" I shouted at my sister. "Stop playing and open the door." But there was no one to answer me. "I'm going to hit you if you don't let me out," I said, but again, nothing. For a moment there was only silence, and the only thing that could be heard was the bustle of the street and the song of Silent Night from the Christmas toys they were selling at the street stall in front of the house. When a strong blow on the window made me turn. Something had hit the window. I could see the mark on the outside, or at least that's what I hoped. Maybe the mark of the blow was on the inside. This was what finally made me use all my strength, and with my shoulder, I pushed the door and turned the knob. The door opened so easily that I fell to the floor. No one was holding it anymore. I heard the door downstairs open, the voices of my grandmother and my sister entering. I went down as fast as I could down the stairs, and then waited for my grandmother to leave to tell my sister what happened. And the thing is, my grandmother hated these kinds of things. She always scolded me for playing. My sister told me something. She swore that when she left the room, she left the door open, and I swear to you that I never closed it, but I also didn't hear it close behind me. I never knew what locked me in that room that afternoon. Hello, Tales of the Night community. My name is Eduardo, and I really like being able to share one of my experiences with you. I have to clarify that I am a big fan of the paranormal, and since I found this channel, it has become my favorite because of the way they narrate and give detail to each of our stories. I work in a funeral home, and as you can imagine, I have many anecdotes and experiences that in the future I will be delighted to tell. I have always liked everything related to horror. I think that's where my taste for the funeral, for all the culture behind death, comes from. This story begins once I was cremating bodies. The funeral home has the crematory outside the city, in a town about 30 minutes away, and we always cremated at night, since the people of the place did not allow it before 6. That time I still had 3 bodies to cremate, and it was already late. I am alone in the crematory. There is no other person to help me. As usual, I alone took the bodies out of the coffin and put them in the oven. The whole process before starting the cremation took me about 30 or 40 minutes. Sometimes there were extremely heavy bodies, and it took me a little longer, since due to the size it was difficult for me, but never anything out of this world. That night it was already approximately 2 in the morning, and I was extremely tired from everything that the process entailed. I had waiting a young girl about 28 or 30 years old who unfortunately had died of cancer. As with every body, I proceeded to take her out of the coffin to start the process, but I couldn't do it. I felt the body extremely heavy, impossible to move. In this funeral business, it is said that when a body becomes so heavy, it is because it doesn't want to go. And I tried everything, community, even taking her out with a hoist. We have to lift tons, but I couldn't move her. With that hoist, I have taken out bodies that exceed 200 kg, and this one shouldn't have weighed more than 50. After, believe me, a long effort, I was able to take her out. I think I spent an hour struggling. Before starting her cremation, I said a prayer for her. I have the habit of praying for the corpse before putting it in the oven. I prayed for her and her family, and as I imagined, I struggled another good while to be able to put her in. It was past 3 when I could finally start the cremation. A normal body like hers takes 2.5 hours to become ashes, and we used to move it every hour so that it would be completely cremated. But since the cremation started, I felt an inexplicable tiredness, a heavy energy like never before in the crematory. Then an hour passed, and I proceeded to open the door to move the body a little. What I saw then to this day is one of the most shocking things of my life. I swear to you, community, that the body was intact. The body that by that time should have been in bones or at least completely burned was exactly as I left it there. I think the most shocking thing is that around it there was liquid, water, and that is completely impossible. The body after embalming has no liquid, and there was the oven with the burner on with the flame directly towards the body, and that liquid without evaporating, completely around it. I closed the oven door again, questioning myself about what I had seen. After a long time, the cremation finally ended. It was a total of 6 hours that process lasted. After a few days at the funeral home, due to some pending paperwork, I saw the family of that girl again, and during the conversation a comment from the sister came up. I don't know why they cremated my little sister. She never wanted to be cremated. She wanted to be in the cemetery next to my mom. What I heard left me frozen, because that's when everything I did that time had an explanation, and that wasn't all. After a few days, certain things started happening to me derived from that cremation, which I will tell you about later. Thank you for accompanying us until here. Now we turn off the light again and continue with the next tale of the night. Hello, community. My name is Eunice, and I want to share an experience that marked me deeply. Years later, I still can't find a logical explanation. What I experienced was not a product of my imagination. I know because I didn't experience it alone. It all started when I decided to move to another city. I was 19 years old, and I went with all the excitement in the world to start university. I chose a coastal city, hot, quiet, and I managed to rent a house with 3 other girls who were in the same situation as me. We were 4 students sharing a 2-story house. At first, everything was completely normal. We got along well and the coexistence was good. But after a few months, we started noticing strange things. The first time was in the early morning. I woke up really needing to go to the bathroom, and when I left my room, which was on the ground floor, I found the living room light on. I thought one of my roommates had gone down and left it on, but when I looked, there was no one. I went to the bathroom, turned off the living room light on the way back and went to sleep. I didn't give it any importance until it happened again. 1, 2, 3 more times. Always in the early morning, always the living room light on when it shouldn't be. I even came to think that the switch was failing, but I never saw a flicker, nor a short circuit, nor anything that indicated an electrical problem. Even sometimes I asked if someone else had gone down, but they all denied it. One night, while trying to sleep, I heard something fall in the kitchen. It was a loud crash, as if they had thrown a large pot. I got up, turned on the hallway light and walked over there. When I arrived, everything was in place. There was nothing out of the ordinary. I returned to my room confused, with a feeling that something was very strange, that there was something that wasn't right. Another night from my room, I heard someone going down the stairs. That creaking was unmistakable. The steps were wooden and made a lot of noise with each step. I thought one of the girls had gone down for water or to the bathroom, but the strange thing was that I never heard them reach the ground floor. The steps stopped suddenly, as if they had stayed there in the middle of the stairs. I left my room to check, but there was no one. I went up the stairs slowly, checking everything, all the rooms. All my roommates were sleeping. I didn't say anything, partly out of fear that they would tell me I was crazy, and partly because although it worried me, I could still bear it. Weeks passed, and one early morning, I woke up feeling an enormous sadness, as if something was oppressing my chest. I left my room without knowing why, and when I looked towards the stairs, I saw a woman sitting there. She was with her back to me with her body hunched as if she was crying. She had very long, loose hair and was wearing a white blouse with dark pants. I froze. I couldn't move. Fear had completely paralyzed me, and then, without turning towards me, the figure simply vanished. She didn't walk. She didn't get up. She simply disappeared in front of my eyes. I returned to my room trembling, and obviously, as soon as it dawned, I told my roommates what I had seen. To my surprise, one of them very seriously told me that she had also seen her. That several nights she heard someone crying on the stairs. That she always thought it was me. That's why she never said anything. Another roommate commented that sometimes she felt someone watching her while she slept, and the last one, who was the most skeptical, just stayed quiet. Until that day, no one had spoken about anything, but somehow we had all felt it. A couple of months later, the owner of the house visited us to talk about the contract. In the conversation, and taking advantage of the trust, we asked her if anyone had died in the house. She became very serious. She told us that she didn't comment on it because she didn't think it was important, but yes, that the previous tenant, a young woman, had taken her own life inside the house, and she didn't want to say more. She didn't tell us how or where. After that, everything got worse. Noises, steps, lights turning on by themselves, crying in the early morning. But the worst was that constant feeling of not being alone, that someone was watching us. A lot of sadness. We finished the school year as best we could, and obviously we didn't renew the contract. We left without looking back. To this day, I have not experienced anything like that again. And although years have passed, sometimes I still dream about that house with the woman on the stairs. Hello, I would like to tell you my story. This happened to me when I was 8 years old. I remember that a cousin had just given birth to her first child. They had already discharged her from the hospital, so we went to meet the baby. My cousin showed him to us, and after a while, she said she was going to put him to bed. We stayed in the living room, my sister, and I asked my aunt for permission to go see her rabbits that were in some cages at the back of the patio. It was a large patio, and on one side it had a huge apple tree. There was no light over there, so you could only see what the moon could illuminate. We were there. About 10 minutes passed when we heard a very loud scream coming from the second floor, right where my cousin's room was. From where we were, we saw my aunt, my dad, and my cousin's siblings run up there. We were going towards my mom, who was standing at the foot of the stairs, looking up when we heard a whistle. The whistle came from the apple tree. We turned outside. The whistle continued, as if someone was humming a song. My sister ran out of fright, but I don't know how to explain it. But my body simply wouldn't move. Suddenly, without realizing it, I started walking towards the tree, and I saw a man with a leather hat with his back to me. When he turned, he smiled at me very calmly. I didn't know him, but for some reason he gave me terrible fear. At that moment I felt a very strong pull on my arm. My mom grabbed me hard and ran me out of my aunt's house along with my sister. Without saying anything, we went to my house, and only there I could react. I was trembling on the verge of tears, and I didn't let go of my mom for a second. That night my dad didn't come back. The next day when he did, my mom asked me to tell them what I had seen. I told them in full detail, without fear that they wouldn't believe me. When I finished, my dad didn't say anything. He just went to his room, came back with a photo, and asked me if that was the man I had seen. And yes, it was him. The same leather hat, the same calm smile. My parents didn't say anything. I asked them who he was, but they didn't want to tell me. For a long time I couldn't sleep alone in my room. Right from my window I could see that tree. My family's houses are next to each other, inheritance from my paternal grandparents, and that tree is in the center. I could only sleep there again when they finally cut down the apple tree. Years passed, and one day my parents finally told me the truth. The man I saw was my uncle, one that I never got to meet. He died when I was not yet born. I had also never seen a photo of him. That's why I couldn't recognize him. And up to there it was quite a scary story. But it didn't end like that. That night, when everyone ran to my cousin's room, they found her in a corner crying, hugging her baby as if trying to protect him from something. She kept repeating, "He wants to take him. He wants to take him. He wants to take him away from me." When she finally calmed down, she told them that she had seen her father standing next to the crib, looking at him fixedly. My aunt tried to calm her down, telling her that maybe he had just gone to meet the baby to visit her. But my cousin interrupted her. "No, Mom, he looked like him, but it wasn't my dad. He mocked me. He told me that the baby was his. When I screamed, he disappeared. I don't know what it was, but no matter how much he looked like him, I swear it wasn't my dad." My father stayed with my cousin all night, and she couldn't sleep. When I found out about all this, the only thing I asked was to change my room, and even though the tree was no longer there, I didn't feel calm. My aunt, for her part, did a cleansing with herbs throughout the house to ward off any bad presence. And in reality there were many stories about that tree, about my aunt's house. Maybe later I'll tell you another one, but this one I see as the most personal, the strongest, because I was there, because I was a witness, because I saw that man with the hat. Thank you very much for reading my story, and have a very good night. See you in the next video.